Welcome to Yes Also. I'm your host, Susie Barrett. My guest today is the irreplaceable Julie Brister. Julie was the coach of my UCB Herald team, Sentimental Lady, for years and was a huge influence on me. And she continues to be a favorite teacher at UCBLA and now online at WGIS. Julie and I had a great conversation about improv, no surprise there, but the coolest part to me was going on a journey with her through those very first days of UCB New York, which is where she started her improv journey. She studied under Amy Poehler, for God's sake, and just really paints a picture of what it was like to go to classes and shows back when UCB was just getting their start. If you want to see some great pics from throughout Julie's improv career, head over to our Instagram page at YesAlsoPod. But for now, here's the episode.
Thank you for having me, you guys.
Yeah. You are one of the most influential people in my improv story because you coached my Herald team for years.
I did.
You did. And you were such a great coach.
Oh, thank you.
And I loved learning from you. And I don't know if you remember this. When my friends were taking 301, I asked you if I could audit the class that they were in. And you let me sit in on a 301. And
I don't remember this.
It was like Mark Tyke, Greg Winter, and Frank Coyetti.
I do remember
and
this.
I was like, I want to play with my friends. And you were like, come. And you just let me be in the class. And it was so fun.
Now I remember. Yeah, that was great.
But it was cool to watch you as a teacher in your teaching element as well. You're so supportive while also being really smart and insightful about your notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I would say that really influenced me as a teacher. It's like, oh, this is so great. Like, you're giving the knowledge that they need, but nobody's leaving there feeling bad or questioning themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Full stop. Yeah. Yeah. Improv shouldn't be stressful or a bad time, even while you're learning it, right?
No, although it can be.
It can be.
It can be super stressful and still fun, but I think it's more fun if we're a little more gentle with our approach and with our note giving.
Yeah, totally. Because it is an art form based on confidence at the end of the day. And so if your notes are also pummeling the confidence out of someone, then it's counteractive. Like, they need to learn while also building their confidence, because that's half of what the game is in improv, is looking like you have control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And listening to that voice that's telling you to express yourself.
Yeah.
And not to the voice that's telling you you're an idiot for asserting yourself, which I think is the battle that you certainly have when you're learning how to improvise, is learning how to listen to that voice. If you're just getting negative notes, it's harder and harder to hear it.
Right. You want to amplify the encouraging voice by giving some things that they're doing well, or some things that are fun, or your
excitement about expressing yourself, like that should be paramount over the ugly voice that's telling you that you suck.
Yeah. Do you have an ugly voice that still pops up when you perform? Because you've been performing for years and years and years at this point. Like, does the ugly voice exist still?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Doesn't it to you?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Like I'm in a way, I'm kind of glad that it's there. I am more like, if that voice does not exist in somebody, I don't know, like that is it's like
they are Donald Trump if it doesn't exist.
100%.
Right.
Like I don't want to be like, but yeah, like if you're all confidence and no like kind of self-awareness, that is not a fun improviser to watch.
No, or a fun person to be around, frankly, a human being.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, some measure of doubt is good.
Right. Artists should question their abilities, should question their output. always. I think that that is there for examination.
Do you, when you finish a show, are you someone who spends the next hour kind of replaying things and going like, oh, if I would have done this, or maybe
I used to.
Yeah.
Like when I first started improvising, I was so insecure in that it was painful. And every week I would like go home and say to my partner at the time, I'd be like, I don't know that I'm going to go back. Like in class, like when I had level 1, I'd be like, I don't know if I'm going to go back next week. I don't think I'm going to go back. I think I'm just going to quit. Oh, and the place I had class was like 5 blocks from where I lived. And I remember like Saturday night being like, I'm not going to go in the morning. And the next day I'd be like getting ready and taking my shower. It's like, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. And
I'm just taking a shower for different reasons.
Yeah, totally. It's just like the day. And then I'd be walking out of the house, walking towards 17th Street. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. Walking up the 6 flights of stairs. I'm not going. Here I am. Be mean to me, Ian Roberts.
Oh, this was you had Ian Roberts for level 1 for 101?
Level 1.
Oh my Lord. So the face you just made.
Yeah, he's a great teacher. He's a phenomenal improviser.
And a lovely person.
Truly.
Yes.
But like at that, like having never met this man, and like he is like a very much no bullshit. He tells you on the first day, I'm not going to learn your name.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a technique. Some real throwback.
That's a choice.
Yeah. Huh.
And
I hand out name tags on the first day.
I just learn everyone's name.
Yeah.
I just like if I learned your name, then you can learn everybody else's names.
Totally.
People feel good if you know their names.
Yeah. Also, just make the effort.
Right.
I'm not gonna learn your name.
Yeah. He would tell us that, and then after I had Ian, I had Amy. And it was just like
night and day. Yeah.
Complete, like knew everybody's name.
This is Amy
day.
Poehler for those who,
was the direct opposite. Now, I learned a lot from Ian, and I appreciate Ian, but like as an introductory experience, that was not great.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's rare that people, as they're progressing through 101, which the whole purpose of 101 is to just make people fall in love with improv.
Yeah.
It's mostly playful games. It's very little heady stuff. It's very rare for someone to be like, I don't want to go back. So that's really saying something.
I also screwed up because on my first day, I was house sitting on the Upper East Side, so very far away from class, which normally is right by my house. So on the very first day, I was like 10 minutes late.
Oh no.
And I don't think he ever forgot it. And nobody came in after me. Like I was the latest. And like I felt it's so not me. I'm a very like prompt person, and he called it out. He was like, don't ever be late.
Oh, wow.
And I was okay.
And because of you, I'm not going to learn anyone's name.
Yes,
I was going to. I was on my way.
I already learned everyone's names, and then I immediately, purposefully just found a way to squeeze their names out of my brain.
Never to return. Anyone who uses the word prompt as part of their regular vocabulary, that says something about your person. Of course, you are always on time. Nobody's talking about promptness unless they are there on the dot.
100%.
Yeah, how terrifying.
And then like Ian at this time, this was like right before the UCB TV show.
So wait, what year was this?
This is 1997.
I've heard of it. Okay.
1997. He was like intense, like he was real trim, and he walked like super fast. As soon as class was over, he was like out the door, and he would just be like, walking down the street.
Gotta go write my comedy sketches
with fists, and never talked, never socialized with anybody. And I think that this is like just part of his own coping mechanism. I think that he probably has now I can look back at that and say, oh, I think that he probably had his own social issues, that this is what he needed to do in order to get to class,
right?
And in order to teach. But like on the third or maybe I think it was like the third or fourth week, and this was at Solo Arts in New York City. We arrived to class, and we were like in the lobby area because there was somebody was having a rehearsal or some other class inside. It was the rehearsal because there was only like 3 people, and he was standing behind the curtain, and you could see he was just fuming.
Oh no!
Because it was past our class time, and he like finally he goes, it's time, and the woman goes, give us 1 more minute, and he goes, no, your time is up. And he like was very, very assertive in telling this lady that the time was up. And she goes, well, I'm going to call so-and-so because da-da-da-da. And he goes, get out. And then, so I had that experience, like seeing him in that. And that, I think, kind of affected the rest of my level 1.
Right. Yeah. Dad
is
spitter.
Scary.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's my age, but I was like, Daddy, you're really upset.
Oh, it's so triggering. Yeah. Let's rewind a hot sec.
Okay.
So you grew up in Texas, right?
Yes.
So were you always funny, and did you always want to go into comedy? And if not, when did that enter your sphere?
Loved comedy. I was a funny kid. Did children's theater.
Love it.
Also did like, everything, dance, art, anything but sports. And, like I loved Steve Martin. I loved Richard Pryor. The Eddie Murphy Raw album.
Check. Yep.
I loved all of that so much. And, you wanted
to be a male stand-up.
I really that's it. I wanted to be a 35-year-old male stand-up more than anything. I didn't know how to make that happen though.
Yeah.
Like in Lubbock, Texas.
Right. Just any sort of career in comedy. There was like no what would the path be?
Like a career in comedy, I mean, other than like television shows and Lucille Ball, like Phyllis Diller, like who, like Phyllis Diller of that time. Oh, yeah. Joan Rivers.
Yep.
But there weren't a lot of women in the business at that time that I could look up to and say, oh, that is possible.
Right. Gilda Radner was a big one for me. But
well, that was a huge one for me. Well,
yeah.
SNL definitely. I'm thinking more like in stand up. But
gotcha.
SNL was hugely impactful. Carol Burnett, hugely impactful.
Madeline Kahn, was she a big one for you?
I
was obsessed.
Loved her. Loved all the Mel Brooks movies.
Right.
I'm trying to think who else. No. Gilda Radner was just so funny. She was so like sweetly positive and funny.
Yes, she's someone where you can see the twinkle in her eyes as a human being, no matter what she's playing. And it's like bunk beds. You're watching 2 things at the same time. You're watching a character who's hilarious, and then you're watching and falling in love with the person who's filled with that mirth and joy, who's bringing you that character.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Watching her be delighted to be doing what she's doing was almost better than even the characters themselves.
Wait, when you watch an actor like loving their performance, or like loving that they're getting to do this, when you see that, there's just nothing more like inspiring and comforting.
Yeah, it is comforting. It's encouraging to be like, oh, there is something for people. Like there's a possibility in this life that you can land so squarely in the thing that's perfect for you. You can be a fish in water. Like there's hope for the rest of us. Like our dreams might be right for us too, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm being too
that sounds
big about that. But
I think that there is definitely something to that. Like she was so just ethereally beautiful, like in everything.
Yeah.
My favorite is that she's in is Paper Moon.
I haven't seen Paper Moon.
Oh my gosh.
It's on my list.
Oh.
I have not seen it.
Oh, I hope you get to see it.
I hope I get to.
Yeah.
I hope they let
hope
me.
You get to. Hope they. Yeah. I hope that the movie people that letterboxed will release Paper Moon for you to enjoy.
I hope. So you're growing up in Lubbock, Texas. You're watching comedy. You're loving it. And you're doing some theater. When did it start kind of taking shape? Like your career trajectory. You're angling towards acting.
So I knew I wanted to be an actor since I was like 4, since I saw Peter Pan.
Amazing.
So I did that. I went to college and studied theater.
And you were a goth at this point?
I was super goth.
Yes.
I was not in high school. I was more into like new wave. And the minute I went to college and I had a super hardcore roommate, we were into hardcore music and then transitioned into goth. And
wait, what was the hardcore? Like heavy metal or something?
No, like Minor Threat, Black Flag.
Okay.
You know, like
Henry Rollins category.
Yes.
Like alt, gritty alt stuff.
Right.
Okay.
The skanking in a circle.
What's skanking?
Where you like run around in a circle that's sort of dancing and you push everybody over.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that at punk shows
yes,
sometimes.
it's punk music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like a version of moshing, but like you go around in a circle.
Exactly.
But it is violent.
It's super violent,
Yeah.
super scary.
Yeah, I don't like it.
No,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't do it now. I
Right.
haven't been up front at a show like in 30 years.
Good for you. Yeah. That's a young person's game.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're goth and you're
I'm a theater major.
Uh-huh.
I did very well in like I had a nice acting career in college. I was cast in a lot of I went to a college in Central Texas
Called
Southwestern University, and it's a Methodist. It's still connected to the Methodist Church. It was so conservative, even though it wasn't like a really conservative school, but they were so afraid of offending anybody who gave money. And so like we did a production my freshman year. So I'm 18 years old and I'm in the children's hour and I'm playing Grandmother Tilford. And they did everything they could to wring out any lesbianism in that play.
They were just determined that this is anyone who knows each other is a very good friend.
Right.
Yeah.
They just 100%.
Right.
They did everything they could to distract from what the essence of the story really was. And that left a bad taste in my mouth then. Like that really bugged me. So we did like, I can't say that we did anything daring or anything that I would consider like we didn't break any new ground within any plays. Like I was in Hay Fever. I was in Once Upon a Mattress. I did all the standards that you would see.
Did they take all the lesbian tones out of Once Upon a Mattress?
100%.
A woman is looking for a pee, and it's just a pee. It's not a clitoris.
No.
A lot of colleges go the opposite way.
Oh,
like
yeah.
This is our postmodern lesbian take on Uncle Vanya.
I never got to have that experience.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah,
and
you
so,
got the inverse.
And I don't want to say like it's not. It was my college experience was good for me because I was away from home for the very first time, and I got to kind of explore and figure out who I was. But I can't say that it was satisfying, like from an acting perspective. And then I moved to New York. I moved to New York to intern at a acting studio. I don't know why
Which
I'm pointing
one?
over there.
Yeah, there it is.
Yes,
I can
right there.
see it.
At an acting studio called the Clyde Vincent Studio.
Okay.
And Clyde, when I had moved there, Clyde was dying. He had AIDS, and he was kind of at like at the end of his life. And so I started at this acting studio where the mentor is bedridden, and his assistant, I was essentially her assistant for the time during my internship. And then I just stayed in New York, and I was like, I'm going to pursue acting, but I just didn't know how, because they don't teach you how to pursue acting.
Yeah, nobody teaches that. It's more accessible now that the internet exists, and you can ask people.
But at that time, that you really, like, I had Backstage, and I would go to open calls.
Backstage is the like newspaper that tells you where open calls are.
Especially back then.
Right.
And I would just shit the bed every time I would audition. And then I was like, okay, I've got to get a job. And then I worked.
What year is this? Like, when did you graduate college? And did you move right after college to New York?
It was the last semester of college. So I moved there. I moved to New York in September of '88.
Wow.
And stayed there until 2006.
What a run.
Yeah, long time.
Long time. How long did it take you to kind of get your groove there and feel like, okay, I should stick with this. I'm getting momentum, or I'm feeling better about it.
I wasn't pursuing acting at all. Like I was working jobs, and not even like I was working and making money, but I was not satisfied creatively. And it really started to like affect my mood, that I didn't have an outlet.
Did you know that? Were you able to put your finger on that being the reason?
Yes.
Yeah,
I knew. Like, I was a performer. Like, I'd go with my friends, I would perform. And this started with a stand-up class. I took a stand-up class taught by this guy Scott Blakeman, who used to teach, or maybe he still does, teach stand-up through the New School. And I did my stand-up at Stand-Up New York, and with the class, my class show at Stand-Up New York. And then I started doing open mics. And I
had no idea you did stand-up.
I did stand-up for about not that long, like a year and a half.
That's longer than a lot of people have done it.
Well, it was like forcing myself, and I was still doing the same 5 minutes I did in my class show. Like, I didn't add, I didn't really dicker with it. It was when I did well, when I had friends there, it was so much fun. And then when I did badly, just failing alone in stand-up is a miserable experience.
Yeah, how do you handle that?
Yeah, that just felt bad. And so I was like, this doesn't feel good. I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. And it wasn't long after that I started taking new acting classes.
Yeah.
With, at that time, it was Terry Schreiber.
Oh, oh no, wait, I'm thinking of Liv Schreiber. Oh, I'm like, the Terry Schreiber?
The Terry Schreiber, director of K2 on Broadway.
Oh, that's why I know them. So now you're feeling more creatively satisfied, less depressed, less angsty?
Yeah, less angsty, a lot more fun being back in acting class. And I did that for a while until I was like, what is missing? I was like, where do people who do SNL, what do they do?
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had a cousin who at that time was like faxing jokes into Weekend Update.
God, this is the best.
And I asked him, I was like, what do I do? And he goes, you got to take an improv class. You either go to Chicago City Limits, or you go to the Upright Citizens Brigade. They're new, and they're teaching in Chelsea, and that was close to my house. So that's where I went.
Wow. Just a flip of the coin.
Yeah.
Although you would have been great at Chicago City Limits. That's all short form, right?
All short form. And I knew of Chicago City Limits because my first job at that acting studio, they rented space at my acting studio. So I knew some people over there. But this was a little later. This was like several years later. And at that time, Chicago City Limits was on like First Avenue, like right by the 59th Street Bridge. Mm-hmm. And it was like in a movie theater in this real desolate stretch. And it's like, that would take me so long to get there.
Yeah.
I have no...
And I'm a woman walking alone. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems like it was a rougher New York back then.
Oh, no.
No.
In the 80s it was,
Okay.
but like this was like 90s.
Okay,
this
we're in the clear.
We're in the clear.
Giuliani's already taken credit for cleaning up the city at that point.
LA is 1,000 times scarier than New York.
Yeah. Well, there's large swaths of LA where you can be the only person on the street at night,
100%.
which is in itself terrifying and dangerous.
I feel like so many neighborhoods are allergic to streetlights.
Yeah.
And it's a
why?
lot scarier.
Right. And yet the most taxes paid, like think of just the property taxes alone of these houses. Don't get me started on LA politics. So you sign up for UCB, you have that Ian Roberts 101. What made you stick with it? But since that 101 was a little bit prickly for you, thank God you stuck with it, and thank God you were rewarded with a 201 with Amy, who's like the hot tub of a human being. What made you push through?
I wanted to know more. When it worked, when it was really working, when I would go up and say something and I could really recognize the pattern. Pattern recognition was not easy for me. Like it's something that took me like a minute to kind of get and understand. The more writerly aspects of the style of improv that we do, it took me a second to kind of figure it out.
Get more specific for me. What about pattern recognition?
Between pattern recognition or really premise was really difficult. What I had to do in my head was watch a scene, watch a team perform. I would watch Danielle Schneider.
She's great.
In a scene, and I would see what Danielle would do in a Herald in the second beat. And I would be like, oh, okay. So in the first, it's the same thing happening. So in the first scene, there are a couple, but in the second scene, it's her boss. She's at work. And so I just watching and templifying in my head kind of eventually helped me get it. And then I could let a lot of that just kind of fall away.
Right.
Once I became more comfortable in what I was doing.
You had to learn the magic trick a little bit by like really taking yourself through it. You're pointing out something that I think a lot of us take for granted, that when we're younger and watching shows, a lot of times it isn't until you see the second beat that you as an untrained or a younger performer see what the game or the pattern is. It's like the first beat is just a funny scene, and then you're like, oh wait, the thing is that the woman is always asking too many questions.
Yes.
Or, but it's like you don't recognize that until it becomes patternized.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's like I could see it, but like putting that into practice and conveying your idea to somebody else and conveying that idea where you sound like a human and not like a robot where I'm just shoving like information at you or giving you too much information to make it obvious.
Right.
Like learning that the nuances like took me a second.
I mean, it takes everyone a second. It's not natural.
And also something that was very weird about different about UCB back then, it was very small. Mm-hmm. If you were in level 1 was learning foundation, level 2 was at that time was a little more learning foundation, learning beats, and you didn't really learn the Herald until level 3, and I had Amy for level 3 as well. If you were in class, you were on a team,
right?
Like if you were in class, you had to come back to the theater on Monday night, or I forgot what night Herald night was, and you would perform every week.
Just
even though
everyone was on a team automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Like maybe a couple of, maybe there were 2 real randos that weren't, but everybody was on a team. And then as it got bigger and bigger, people would fall. You'd see people would be getting better and it became more competitive, but we didn't have auditions, I feel like, until after, I feel like I can't remember the first time we had auditions. It was fairly early on. It was when at 22nd Street, but it was like after about a year or year and a half.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a different experience from these kids today.
Right. Well, we just had Herald auditions at UCB. I forgot how many it said that had auditioned, but it was like 1,000. Like it was so many people.
That's so much. Yeah. For like 20 spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
It's really, really crazy those kinds of differences.
When you, I have two questions. I'll do this one's a smaller one. When you were on a team during classes, did you feel like overwhelmed? I mean, certainly like that's pretty early to be on a team. If you're still taking like 201 or 301, did you feel kind of like in over your head? Was it like sink or swim? Was it overwhelming?
Oh, it was very overwhelming, but we were coached. We were super dedicated. My first team was Mexican Popsicle. It was me, Ari Fukitas, Chad Carter, this guy Tom Blake, my friend Dave Stork, Gideon Evans was also on Mex Pop, and then and then a series of different women coming in to be the second woman on the 8-person team.
Right. Yep. I was just talking about that phenomenon, how it always used to just be 2 women on a team or sometimes 1 woman on a team for years and years and years. That was just the standard.
I think it's frequently still the standard.
Yeah.
Women will push back now, and I'm glad for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and who was coaching you guys?
Oh, everyone. We were coached by, for a long time, we were coached. Billy would coach us. Sean coached us. Delaney coached us for a long time.
Fun.
So we had everybody who coached us. Secunda coached us. Katie Roberts coached us for a little bit. Yeah.
So you're super dedicated. It is overwhelming. And you're also studying up by watching other teams and reverse engineering their shows.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I had a full-time job.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Working girl. What was the job, just out of curiosity?
At this time, I was working at Court TV in ad sales as like an assistant in ad sales. It was a soul-sucking job, 8 to 6. And then as soon as I got off, I was at the theater.
Amazing. That's a real New York grind.
Yeah.
Because also adding travel time, subway time, all of that stuff. All right. My bigger question is, you had Amy for 2 levels. Give me some nuggets that she taught you. Do you remember any like sound bites or pearls of wisdom or things?
Amy would come in the mornings. I'll also say this was like while they were shooting their TV show,
the UCB
TV show. They would still teach on the weekends.
Wow.
Would be at UCB at noon, which sounds late, but they worked so hard. I mean, it was crazy to be there, like that she would be there at noon with a really strong tea. And she would sometimes read to us from whatever book she was reading.
The Bible.
Yeah. The book Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Yeah.
She would read us like little quotes and little nuggets from that book. And but I'm trying to think of like anything that she would say, like any mantra. She was just so supportive. I remember one time Ari Vukitas was like, "We're ready to do the Herald," and we hadn't learned. We hadn't really. We're ready. He was like fresh out of college. We're ready to do the Herald, and she goes, "You think you're ready? All right, get up and do it." And it was just a total mess. Just shitting the bed. Oh, I've said it several times in this podcast already, but once again, we shit the bed.
There was diarrhea on the bed sheets.
There was,
yes.
And the stage. And then we were like, we were finished, and she goes, "Now, how do you feel?"
What did he say?
And he goes, well, I don't know. It's like, well, I think that we just need practice. And we did. We practiced. We were so dedicated. At that time, classes were 3 hours. Our rehearsals were 3 hours.
Wow.
And we would rent space for 3 hours because you couldn't really rehearse in people's apartments.
Right. It's just too close quarters and
too small and
thin walls. And
it's just too difficult. And so we would rent space, spend the money to rent space, spend the money to get a coach. And I started doing that at the very end of level 1 and like just did that until I stopped being coached.
Yeah. And you were hooked and you felt yourself learning and getting better. And it was like, okay, this is the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I was older. I was already older than most of the people that were taking classes. Like I would think at that time I was like 31.
Oh, because you had already had your stretch of like acting classes and all this other stuff, working life. Okay, 31 is pretty old to enter improv classes.
So I started like at that time 31. Everybody else is like 22, and there were other people who were close. Like Delaney was close to my age, and certainly Besser and Ian and Walshy were close to my age. But everybody else was much, much younger. And I think that a lot of people, when they start improvising, when they're a little older, they're like in class, they feel awkward, or they feel embarrassed, or they feel aware of their age. And to me, it was always like, this isn't a bad thing. This is a good thing. This is a good thing.
I have 9 more years of reference base on you guys.
100%. Like I never felt like I shouldn't be doing this because I'm old. I was like, I'm supposed to be doing this. Mm-hmm. It felt right. Like, yes, there's a lot of annoying recent college graduates, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you
can handle it.
You can handle it, Julie. I mean, based on your lead up to this, where you had the experience of feeling something missing and feeling angsty that you weren't scratching your creative itch.
This was right. This was the thing. Yeah, I knew it.
It's so laden with creativity. Every aspect of it is creative, including just how you're relating to all these different people. And it's so like... It's such a bevy of theatrical delights. You're not just rehearsing one play. You're playing 18 characters in a 3-hour session.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something, because before, when I said I did dance and I had my acting class and I had art classes, but I didn't do sports. I don't think I really understood teammanship and what it meant to be on a team until I was on a team. And that was so much fun. It was fun to be a part of a team. And when you grew and when you succeeded together by supporting one another, I mean, that was just the most wonderful experience.
Totally. Yeah. And what an antidote to your cold, lonely feelings on that stand-up stage.
Oh, yeah.
To come now into a group where
you fail with a group.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Do you remember any like standout shows from that time or theatrical experiences, like things you saw or things you were in? Just because that's like you have like a foothold and a memory and like the very original UCB, and not a lot of people.
I have a ton. Like those ASCATs. I would go to ASCAT every Sunday night, and at Solo Arts, six flights up, they had an elevator, but it usually didn't work. Sitting on the floor in an unair-conditioned space with box fans up the front.
There were no seats in that space?
There were about 30, maybe 30 seats, and everybody else was more people were sitting on the floor and on the stage, because they got in a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And the very first ASCAT I saw, Janine Garofalo was the monologist, and it was the 4 UCB plus Andy Richter, Tina Fey.
Incredible.
Stack.
Wow.
Brian Stack.
Yeah.
Brian McCann,
wow.
I think. And just the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. Just so funny. And Conan, this was early days of Conan. So like there was and the UCB did sketches on Conan. So there was a real Conan kind of connection to UCB at that time.
Was he coming out to do Ass Cats?
No, but he did later. Not at that time, but Andy was there. Andy was my favorite. Andy was so funny. I remember if you were to talk about one thing, like the one of a few, there are a few things I remember, but I remember one scene where Amy was sitting in Andy's lap and Andy was pee Santa. And she goes, "Mommy, it smells like business in here."
It smells like business.
I've never forgotten that.
Yeah, that's so funny. I love intelligently talking about stuff that has titles like Pea Santa. So this most incredible moment in a show happened. Andy was Pea Santa.
I was completely taken aback by the nuances of Pea Santa.
The nuances of Pea Santa.
It's like when you save your old improv coach notebooks and you go back and look, and they are pure insanity.
Gibberish. Even the next day, I'll look back because I title scenes so I remember for notes, and I'll be like, lobster baseball, apron follies. Like, what? I used to think, so when you coached Sentimental Lady, we used to rehearse, or we used to practice in Johnny Meeks's garage, and it was so fun, and we'd have like these 2-hour practices every Thursday. And years into it, I realized, like, man, this whole time I should have been just keeping a diary where I write about what we did at rehearsal as if it was like what we did together as friends. Like, like today, Berg and I invented a submarine that could go back in time and kill all the Nazis. And then Johnny had a prize-winning rabbit.
And Fernie was a wasp in a nest full of bees.
Right. Like, it's just such a funny, what a weird thing it is that we do.
Oh, it is so weird, and I'm so grateful for it.
Right? It is the most important thing in my life, without a doubt. When it disappeared during COVID, I just about had a nervous breakdown.
Did you do any online?
Some, yeah, not enough.
It was weird, like at first. Like I remember the very first show I did was like something like one of Josh's groups. So Josh had asked me to do something with a group, and I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, that was unusual. But I can see why this was fun. And once there are many things about Zoom improv that I love.
Tell me about that. Let's get into this.
It's a lot more intimate. Mm-hmm. And so for those kinds of scenes, it's cinematic because you're watching each other on a screen. And so if you really, really want to boost that and employ techniques to amplify that, I think that it makes a huge difference.
You're pointing out something that I hadn't clocked before, which is that it strips a lot of the overacting away. Mm-hmm. You have to speak like a normal person, and so it solves for that jittery overacting issue that a lot of people have, or that I still fight against because I was a kid who trained in musical theater.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's being broad is cozy to me.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It makes for more cinematic scenes. I think it also helps people who, if there are people who are socially anxious or have problems making eye contact and stuff. Like at first I was like, this is so antithetical to good improv. I can't even look my scene partner in the eye because we can't look. If I'm looking at the camera so they can see my eyes, I don't see theirs. There's no way for us to it's impossible. But for people who have like problem looking people in the eye, this could be a gift, and that they can completely.
And you're talking about the camera. The camera is the third person in the scene.
Right.
So like the more you like play with the camera.
Oh, I've never
the more
even
you get close to the
thought about that.
the more you like use the camera,
Right.
I feel like the more interesting the improv scene can be.
I like using the frame of the Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
like getting really close to
Yeah.
whisper stuff, or like, ducking out of frame and then like sliding back in or something. Like there's like tricks you can use that are fun to like make it more dynamic.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of things that are important to me when I teach and when I coach things, stage picture,
Yes.
object work, physicality. You can still be physical in a Zoom scene. And I remember the very first person I think was did you meet Stephen Sharp while you were in Scotland?
No. Or if I did, I don't know that I did.
He was the first person when I started teaching on Zoom who stood up, who like did not want to sit down and improvise. He was like standing up in his living room. And I was like, of course that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we give people the option of standing or not, but I think it would be interesting to see if everybody stood up.
If everybody stood.
If
yeah.
how that kind of changed. Where I was going was sometimes with Zoomprov, things like object work don't matter.
Right.
They really, really don't matter. And so that was interesting for me as a teacher to kind of let go of this thing that was important to me, that I always tended to focus on in class or in a rehearsal, to kind of let that go was interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. And then like, what did you do without that as if that's your main thing?
Just focusing on the scene work itself, focusing on what we're saying and how we are eliciting responses from each other.
What new things bubbled up then? Once that became your focus, what now are your tent poles that are the most important things to teach about scene work, you personally?
On Zoom?
Yeah, or just what appeared as like, if your old things were stage picture and object work and that's stripped away and now you're focused on scene work.
It's like egregiously, not egregiously, I shouldn't say egregiously because it's not a bad thing. Honest, just deep honesty, like grounded, honest scene work. Zoom is perfect for it.
Right.
It's perfect for it. It's great for mono scenes. It's great for foundational, strong, grounded scene work.
Yeah, ground the characters, play with sincerity.
And cinematic, like thinking in terms of, we're not going to be as broad. It is going to just be a more grounded, realistic representation. And I've had some classes where I've done mono scenes where it's like, okay, this is a Zoom meeting mono scene.
Oh, cool.
Or like things that would make sense that we would be seeing this on screen. Or this is all a security video.
Yeah.
And
that's fun.
And make it its own thing that way. I
Lean
think
into what your setting is.
100%.
Yeah.
Because like the fact that the pandemic opened up this as an option, as a means for our survival as improvisers, this was one of the most positive things to happen to improv ever.
Yeah, it is like, so I was just over at the Edinburgh Improv Fest. We were talking about this before the show, and you were there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Being there and meeting people who have done their training exclusively like through your classes and Will Hines's classes and all online. It was amazing. There's, hundreds, thousands of people scattered around the entire world who are now learning this stuff from you, have access to it, who wouldn't have had access before. Because it's like not everybody can move to Chicago or New York or wherever, London.
For sure. Like we're really lucky that people like Will Hines and Jim, before the pandemic, Will was traveling and teaching improv all over the world and had made those connections. So when Zoom opened up, like people were ready because
he had the mailing list.
He had those connections.
Yeah. It's really it's so cool to me that it was making me teary-eyed in Scotland, being like, oh, all these scenes are starting. We are witnessing it. It's like time traveling. It's like watching how things started in Chicago in the 80s,
right,
all over again for a whole new group of people. And,
and they're good. They're so good. Like in Glasgow, the Glasgow Improv Theater, Martin Walmsley. Amazing.
Martin's amazing. I had him.
Hannah.
Yeah.
John.
Yes.
They're so damn good. The Denmark crew.
I'm about to teach there in 2 weeks.
Oh, have fun.
I will.
Sarah,
excited. Yeah.
they're so smart and so funny.
Everyone's great. Yeah. I've taught in Iceland a bunch, and
cool.
Have you gone yet?
No.
Oh, you gotta go. They'd love to have you. Yeah.
Please.
Please. But yeah, the first time I went, I was blown away. First of all, that's one of those scenes that was like a word of mouth scene.
Yeah.
Like this girl Dora took a UCB intensive, went back and taught everyone how to do a herald, and they had never seen one before.
Wow.
And Beck Drysdale and I went over there. We met them at DCM, and they were like, come, our theater's opening. We went over, and by the time we got there, they were doing perfect heralds and had never seen one. It was all word of mouth.
That's so
It was
freaking
so crazy. And then, I taught a bunch of workshops there. Every scene was a banger. Every line was funny. Everybody was playing grounded. Everybody was doing all the right things. And afterwards, we were at the bar, and I was asking this girl, Saga, who's now one of my very good friends from there. I was like, what is it about Icelanders? Like, why are you all so funny, and why do you have such an aptitude for improv? You're doing better scenes than a lot of people that I've coached for years and years, and you just started. And she goes, I think it's that it's a difference in how Americans are raised. Like, everyone in America is told that you can do anything. You can be anyone you want to. And here it's like more realistic. If you're bad, they tell you, and so you stop. So by this age, if you're doing this, you are the best in the country at making people laugh.
I thought you were going to say, we are a storytelling culture.
Nope. We are honest to the point of insulting children out of their dreams. Yeah. Also, yeah.
I think we could use a dash of
that. It's like an ego thing. Your national anthem is like, look at our bombs and our flag is still up and we're the coolest. And our national anthem is about a flower who cries. Also, we can't get the big ego here because everybody also has to make a living to help the country run. There are only 300,000 of us. So, like, the coach of the Iceland football team that is now in the Euro Cup, he is also a dentist. I was like, wow, yeah, these are all differences that make a lot of sense. Yeah. Wow, America sucks.
When you've gone, how long have you stayed?
Usually like 10 days or 2 weeks, just to try. Jet lag really screws me up, and you want to like get the most out of your trip too.
That's the hardest thing for me. Like, I want to do all these things. The jet lag, even when I went to Scotland, and I went early to try to get ahead of it, and it still kicked my ass.
It's a monster, and the older I get, the more it's like my circadian rhythms are getting set in their ways. They're like, no, grandma needs darkness at this hour.
Yeah, I've been there for a while.
Yeah. Also, the screwy thing about Iceland is like if you go in the winter, it's like almost dark almost all day. If you go in the summer, it's light. So that screws you up too. But wonderful place to go teach improv and see improv. Talk about dedicated students.
I will go. I like it. It's like a goal.
Great. And I'm going to have them on this.
And if you're listening,
I'll put you in touch with them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to have them on this podcast as well to talk about their scene, as well as like the Glaswegians and
good.
Yeah. All of these scenes are so cool. If you have an improv scene and would like to be on the show, yesalsopod@gmail.com. That's .com. Do you have a favorite type of show or form to play? I've done a lot of mono-scene shows with you because we do that Thanksgiving show every year where we are like a family having dinner.
God, I love mono scenes, but I really, I love a montage. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the Herald. I enjoy the Herald structure, and when it is great, it is just the most heartwarming, soul-warming experience as an audience member,
Right.
and of course as a performer. But when a Herald is great, it is so terrific. But I can't say that I enjoy them or that it's fun, like as an improviser.
Because it's so much work and there's so many ways where it can be incorrect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it uh it's so hard to keep 8 people on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's like, as a being coming from a series of teams, that's always been the hardest part.
Staying on the same page.
Yeah, getting everybody on the same page.
Do you so when you do montages, do you have a preference of like pulling premise versus organic?
I love premise, but I like both. Like I really Will Hines's recent essay about the Herald. Did you read that?
I didn't.
Where he like they at I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time expressing myself. At WGIS, it's very suggestion and go. It's very organic. It takes a lot of the premise aspect out. When I started doing this, I only liked organic scenes. So I learned to love premise. And
You only liked organic. Why? Because it was more free.
And because I just had a hard time.
You had a hard time.
I
with
had
the patterns. Yeah.
the pattern game. I had the pattern game. I hated the pattern game for so long.
Even just like as the warm up, you mean like the opening, the pattern game.
The opening,
yeah.
The pattern game opening. I love a pattern circle.
Yes.
But I mean, the pattern game opening is
put you into a flop sweat, huh?
It really 100% would put me into a flop sweat, because like my brain just does not react like that quickly, and it just talk about making like feeling badly or feeling like I don't have anything. I would barely participate when we first started doing pattern game. I had a class with Besser that was nothing but pattern game for 8 weeks.
Nothing but like you never did scenes.
We would eventually do scenes, but like we would be standing doing pattern game. We would sit in a circle and do a pattern game. We would he would go, pony, go, do a 1-word pattern game with yourself.
Oh,
like
no.
It was so hard.
This is some type of OCD manifesting.
100%. And I thought it was me. It was me. And now I know that it was the way it was being taught.
Yeah. Also, if you do more than one pattern game in a session, you're at risk of like losing which word was from which circle.
Yes.
Even like running 2 heralds in a row, it's like, am I pulling from the right opening?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I understand that feeling where everybody else is like rapid fire. You're trying to think of something, but then you're so busy doing that you're not grabbing and siphoning things that you can flag for use for later, because you're like caught up in, yeah.
Right. Or what I would do for the longest time, like too long, like, and this is the first year, I would do a monologue, and then I would initiate my own monologue.
Yep.
And like I did that until I think it was Armando. When Armando moved to New York, Armando was like, Julie, you just initiated off of your own monologue. And I was like, yeah, so what?
So what? Teach.
What about it? What you gonna do about it? And he was like, you really can't do that. And so I started listening differently. Like learning to listen is the biggest challenge, period. Yeah, I think, like, if we say the one thing that we have to learn to do is to listen, and listen well, and be open to just reacting to what's being given to you. And that like I think a lot of people have a hard time learning how to do that. It ties
back into where we started with this conversation with like the good encouraging voice versus the icky mean voice. If the icky mean voice is too loud in the moment, it prevents good listening because you are filtering everything through, okay, Julie, well then come up with something. Okay, well they said scrambled eggs. Well, what does that make you think of, idiot?
Oh my God.
Something better.
No.
A to C, not B.
It's over. Oh my God. Oh my God. What was the word? And then like what I used to do, I used to say the suggestion. I went through a period where like, give me a suggestion.
Toothpaste. You just whispered into your hand and then put it in your pocket?
Yes.
What does that do?
It made me remember.
You would literally whisper.
I would do this. I would go, they'd say toothpaste and then I'd be on the back road going.
She just held her hand
over her mouth. I went toothpaste.
And then mimed taking her hand and putting something invisible into her pocket.
Yeah.
And that worked.
That worked. And I would teach and tell people to do that.
That's so funny.
I say, if you have a hard time remembering the suggestion, like I don't have to do that anymore. But like then I could touch my pocket and know it was toothpaste.
Wow. It's like a real physical trick. This speaks to like you are a physical, like you were saying, physicality grounds you, and so you teach object work in your classes, or really focus on it. Stage picture. This is another clue that you're just like you're an embodied physical performer.
Right. What is the audience looking at? And if it's two people standing still in profile, just neck up, talking, yammering, what is fun to look at about that?
Nothing.
Like it's just so boring.
Yeah. These are things I'm big on as well. Like we are a theatrical medium. People left their house, they bought a ticket, they parked, they stood in line. We're in a theater. Give them a show.
Give people a show.
Yeah. Does physicality help you access different characters? Do you use that as a
Yeah, doesn't it for you
it
as well?
Does.
Yeah. That helps me tremendously.
But not everyone uses that as a technique. Like do you do actual like, oh, I'm going to have this character kind of stand with a hand on their hip, or I'm going to like walk differently, or
it's usually voice. And it's usually voice and like it's like hands. It's different things that I'll do with my hands, but definitely vocally, I'll make those changes.
I love that. Yeah, and you're so good at playing characters.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love doing that.
In this,
and you're so good at playing characters,
and you are,
and you are. So are you, Ryan.
Ryan's good at characters. I keep talking about. I have friends who come to the Thanksgiving show every year, and you're often a favorite.
Oh, that's
and we were just talking about this the other day, that your character game is always so simple.
Oh, yeah.
Like this year or this last year, your thing was that you just bit your tongue on the way over. You just had a sore tongue during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I did the whole show like that.
Yeah.
Ow.
I can't eat that. And the year before, your game was that you wanted everyone to see the movie Tar. Have you seen Tar?
Right. Those, I love because everybody has such fun ideas and fun games. Like, I want to enjoy what everybody else is bringing. And
so the way to do that is to go simple with yourself. You don't have to think too hard, and then
it's more fun, right?
It's more fun.
It's like, God, our show this year was so much fun.
So fun.
I wish we did it more than once a year.
I know. We got to have like Easter dinner. What are other holidays?
Right.
Yeah.
Or a 4th of July cookout.
Perfect. Oh, let's do that.
I know. Why not?
Let's do it. Yeah. And
seeing so much fun.
Yeah. God, that would be great. Because I rarely get to play shows with you anymore.
I know.
Yeah. We're at time.
Okay.
Do you have what is your favorite type of character to play?
I think selfish, somebody on their worst, the worst behavior. Somebody who's normally okay, but right now they're being a selfish prick
because they've hit their limit, or
No, because they want what they really, really want.
Gotcha.
Like, don't you find? Always have to tell people in class, you don't have to be nice. Most of our scenes should be people who normally are nice, but today they're horrible.
That's so funny.
Yeah, today they are selfish, rude. Like, to me, the best character in the world I saw as a child was Nellie Olson. And like when I watched Little House on the Prairie, like I knew as a kid that she had the best part. Like,
I don't know. I've watched Little House on the Prairie, but not religiously. I've seen a few episodes when I was a kid. But
she's the spoiled rich kid whose parents own the mercantile in town.
Got
the
it.
Olson Mercantile. And she's got like curls, and she's petulant, and she's mean, and she's a bully.
Yeah.
And she's funny and entertaining as hell.
Yeah.
And like as a kid, I would be like, let's get to the Nellie scenes. Like Nellie is why isn't this Nellie show? Nellie and Mrs. Olson had the best role.
This is so funny because also everybody else on Little House on the Prairie is so saccharine and sweet. That
so
it's
boring.
Cloying.
Yes.
Yeah. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Laura. You know.
Well, that's the Waltons. But
that's
I
the
know
Waltons.
What you mean.
Yeah. Sorry, they ran them back to back,
Oh,
so I get them mixed up.
Same idea. It's like a country family.
But it's so funny that Little House on the Prairie was a formative comedy teacher for you.
For sure.
And
I will still look at clips. Like I will still, like every few months, look at the clip of Laura pushing Nellie down the hill in her wheelchair. Just to laugh.
Just to laugh. But this tells me also that you, I think, prefer then being the unusual character in a scene rather than voice of reason. Voice of reason often has to play nice to like let the thing happen.
You know, like I like both.
Yeah.
I definitely I can do both, but like I also at this stage I prefer not to initiate.
Oh.
Unless I have like just something burning in my head, I prefer to support.
Puts you more in the moment and in that listening seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to respond.
Do you have any, we are signing off, I promise, but do you have any tricks or tips for people who are learning improv to foster better listening or to tell themselves or to,
I think if you are like initiating, if you are an initiator, if you always have an idea, it's great. Put that in your pocket. But go in your rehearsals, just respond.
That's great.
Step
advice.
out and just respond so that you get in the habit of embracing and listening to another person's idea. Like that, I think, especially early on once we learn how to initiate successfully, it's like a drug.
It's addictive,
and you always want to get that idea and you always want to go.
And your brain has been trained, so it's hard to turn it off because it's like, now I know how to do it, Mom. Here, is this the idea?
Like if you're doing heralds, do a herald where you only support.
Yeah.
Do a herald where you like are you step out second. And do many of those. And I think that makes people more well-rounded improvisers.
I love that.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you so much for being
you,
here.
Susie.
Do you have anything that you want to plug or how can people sign up for your classes?
Look for me. I teach at the Upright Citizens Brigade and have classes there. And occasionally I also teach for WGIS. I have a WGIS class coming up, but I think it's going to happen before this airs. So.
Well, but they can keep their eyes out in the future.
Yeah.
And do you teach UCB classes online as well over Zoom?
I'm just doing one in person right now.
Okay.
I'm just doing in-person classes at UCB.
So LA people should sign up for those.
Yeah.
And great. Anything else you want to plug?
No, that's it.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
Happy Eclipse.
Oh yeah, happy Eclipse. If you have a question about improv that you would like me to ask a future guest, email it to yesalsopod@gmail.com and I will get it on the show. If you're a fan of the show, follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod. And please help us out by liking, rating, reviewing, clicking, sending, talking, and blasting us to your improv communities. That will help us out a lot. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.